Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Number of Republican yeses now up to 9, as we're seeing the vote continue there on the House impeachment of President Trump for the second time, as we've said, never happened before in American history. There's the numbers right there. 9 Republicans, 192 Democrats. We still have about 50 members of Congress left to vote right now. I want to bring in Sarah Fagan, Republican strategist. And Sarah, it was striking. I was surprised that more House Republicans, at least those who spoke, we'll see what the final number of votes are, did not take the tack that we saw from Kevin McCarthy. What the president did was wrong, but it may not rise to an impeachable offense to be done in this way at this time.
Yeah, I think that these numbers to me are a little surprising. I recognize there are certainly 9 more than voted for impeachment the first time, but I would have expected this to be higher by Republicans, and I would have expected more Republicans, even if they disagree with impeachment for a variety of reasons, that they would have more forcefully spoken out against the president's actions and his behavior, not only last Wednesday, but in the days after Wednesday. It took him almost a week to really acknowledge that this was completely inappropriate. Having said that, this is politics at play. Rahm, who spoke a bit ago, had suggested censure on last Wednesday evening. That would have gotten many, many more Republicans. Democrats don't want that. They want the politics of the impeachment. Republicans, on the other hand, they don't want primaries. And one thing that I am certain of is if you pop your head up and raise your hand, even if it's the right thing to do, you are asking for a primary. These members of Congress will be firing up the election machine here in about 2 months for the next election, and that is top of mind, unfortunately. We'll see it play out differently in the Senate, where people have 6 years in between cycles. They have a longer time to sort of get past some of these tougher issues.
Okay, Sarah Fagan, thanks very much. As you pointed out, this is a political process. It's basically, he's got legal trappings inside a political institution, so let's bring in our legal team for more on this as well. And Dan Abrams, I try to assess it from that perspective. If you're looking ahead to the trial in the Senate, assess the arguments you were seeing from each side. Which were the strongest points?
Well, first, let me focus on what we didn't hear. Not a single Republican member of Congress said this election was stolen from Donald Trump, that that's a travesty. Why is that important? Because that's why the rioters were there. They were there because the president told them the election was stolen. And yet not one member of Congress today said the election was stolen. Matt Gaetz said there were concerns, et cetera. And that's significant on the argument about the double standard. And something we heard again and again about, well, why didn't Democrats condemn their own? That's a fair conversation to have, but not all incendiary language is created equal. And that's clear, because when you allege that literally the democracy is broken, that the guy who actually won the election isn't getting to stay there, you are stirring up a lot of trouble. And not a single member of that House today was willing to go that far. And so I think when evaluating the arguments, as we see what's going to come in the Senate, I do think you're going to hear a little less of the invective, a little bit less of the Matt Gaetz type arguments in the Senate, and more of the sort of process argument. More, I think you're going to see arguments about federal law and the law of incitement, saying that it didn't reach that level, rather than the sort of some of the purely political arguments we heard today. But I do think it's so important to focus on that, because more than half of Republicans still believe that the election was stolen from Donald Trump. It's a lie. It's not true, and it's incredibly incendiary, and that's the reason you didn't hear it today.
And that's a good point. Let me bring that to Kate Shaw as well. Kate, I would imagine the Democrats, when they go to the trial, will be talking a lot more about that pattern of lies since Election Day, that phone call to the Georgia Secretary of State, in addition to the inciting of the riot last week. I would expect one more thing you're going to hear from Republicans is, especially if this starts after Joe Biden is inaugurated, basically, what's the point? He's out of office now. It's not proper after the president leaves office.
That's right. I think that the Senate trial arguments will probably largely track what's in the impeachment article, and that is, really a focus on the events of January 6th, but situating those events in the context of the president's conduct and rhetoric over the course of the past 2 months. So it wasn't just January 6th. It's essentially everything that's happened since the election. So I do think you'll hear arguments like that. I do think we heard today a lot of kind of what is the point? It's just politics from the president's supporters. And I think the Democrats actually have, and Republicans who will support impeachment, have a lot of responses to that. One, some kind of decisive repudiation of the conduct is important, even if there's only a week left in the term, might be important even after inauguration. Two, deterrence of future recurrence of this kind of conduct, and then potentially disqualification from future office holding. So all of those things, I think, are answers to the kind of what is the point question, whether that question is raised prior to January 20th, or even if we do find ourselves in a situation of having a Senate trial, as it looks like we will after inauguration.
Well, there is a majority now. You see it right there, 228 so far, with 11 still to vote for the impeachment resolution. So it has enough votes to pass. You saw 10 Republicans have voted for it as well. So Donald Trump has indeed been impeached for a second time, the only American president to impeach twice. There are the numbers right there, 228 to 194. It's not the final numbers yet, but they have crossed over the threshold of a majority to impeach Donald Trump, which means a Senate trial of some form is coming.